I am the other guy in a romance novel, the dependable one she settled for. In the end, the female lead, Ava Mitchell, married me, while the hero, Ethan Vance, was left to live forever with the regret of losing the love of his life. After the wedding, we were happy. I cherished her, and she was thoughtful and attentive to me. I have a sensitive stomach, so she learned how to make a comforting chicken and rice soup for me. When I had to travel for work, she'd have everything packed and arranged in advance. No matter when I came home, she always left the light on for me. Just when I thought she had truly fallen in love with me, Ethan Vance came to San Francisco. Ava rushed to the airport in the middle of a torrential downpour to meet him. That same day, on my way home, I was in a serious car accident. It was late at night when I woke up in the hospital. Thunder cracked outside, and the storm raged on. But the woman who would normally have been heartbroken to see me with so much as a scratch was nowhere to be found. My assistant was dozing on the sofa nearby. Seeing me awake, he immediately stood up. "Mr. Cole, you're awake. Where's Ava?" A sharp pain shot through my head, which felt like it had been hit with a sledgehammer. My vision swam. My assistant lowered his gaze, hesitating before he spoke. "Mrs. Cole left before the accident." The driver said, "That Mr. Vance from Chicago flew into town. She went to see him." He trailed off, glancing at me nervously to gauge my reaction. Ethan Vance. My hand, resting at my side, clenched into a fist. I hadn't heard that name in a long time. Ava had loved him for 6 years. A little over a year ago, he'd flaunted his new girlfriend in her face, and after 6 years of pain, she finally had the strength to leave. I had been waiting for that day. So when I heard she had left Ethan and had nowhere to go, I went to her side as fast as I could. Everything that followed felt natural, and we got together. After failing repeatedly to win her back, Ethan Vance had to watch as she married me. Our married life was peaceful and happy. Until today, lying here in this hospital bed, every part of my body aching, I couldn't escape the thought I was in a car crash, and my wife, Ava, was racing through a storm to be with another man. A bitter smile touched my lips, and my fist tightened. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and my mind was flooded with a dense stream of text and information. It took a long time for me to recover from the shock. The text that had just poured into my head told the story of Ava and Ethan. It was a groveling hero novel, with Ava and Ethan as the main characters. They were tangled up for 6 years, but Ethan never knew how to cherish her, only regretting it after he lost her. And me, I was the second male lead. The rebound. The story ended with Ava marrying me, and Ethan losing the love of his life. In the book, our marriage was portrayed as perfect. She doted on me, learning to cook that chicken and rice soup for my stomach. She would meticulously pick out my suits and ties before a business trip. No matter when I came home, the lights were always on. Even when I told her again and again that she didn't have to do all that, Ava would say, "I'm your wife. Can't I do something for my own husband?" So I let her. Not long ago, Ava had even asked me, "Julian, do you want to have a child? Our own child?" I thought she had truly fallen in love with me. I stroke her hair, my heart aching for her. Childbirth is so painful. I don't want you to go through that. At that moment, she had thrown her arms around me, her voice thick with emotion. "Julian, thank you for loving me." But the second Ethan Vance reappeared, it was all reset to zero. Now, having suddenly received this story, I read over every single line in my mind. It was only then that I understood. I was nothing more than a supporting character. After a few moments, the shock began to subside. I pushed myself up in bed, ignoring the sharp pain from my bandaged leg and the throbbing in my head. "Mr. Cole, you have a fracture in your lower leg and a concussion. The doctor said you need complete rest." "I understand. You can go now." I picked up my phone from a nightstand and saw the text Ava had sent me hours ago. "Julian, Ethan has a terminal illness. He came to San Francisco to see me. I'm just going to meet him for a bit. I'll be home soon." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. The moment I heard the name Ethan Vance, I knew I had lost. Even if the story in the book was over, even if she had married me, the only person in her heart had always been Ethan. Frank, my driver, would have told her about the accident the moment it happened. But she didn't come back. The thought sent a sharp, stabbing pain through my chest. In her heart, I was just the backup plan. No matter how happy the author wrote our ending, it was all a facade. The person in Ava's heart would always and only be Ethan Vance. 3 days have passed since the accident. Ava hasn't shown up, and she hasn't come home. I developed a high fever from an infection in one of my wounds. In my delirious state, I called her. The phone rang a few times before a robotic voice took over. The person you're calling is currently on another call. A moment later, a text popped up on my screen, frowny-faced Julian. Ethan's condition isn't good right now. It's not a good time for me to talk. My body was burning up, but my heart felt like it had been plunged into an icy abyss. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. I'd met Ethan Vance a few times. We weren't friends, but in the business world, you learn to read people. Now, having seen the whole story, I knew exactly what kind of game he was playing. Still weak, I drifted off to sleep. When I woke the next morning, there was a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Ava was in a kitchen, her long hair casually tied back as she cooked. Even in profile, she looked beautiful. The message below read, "She was mine, is mine, and always will be." I smirked, remembering when Ava made soup for me. She had smiled and said, "Julian, this is the first time I've ever really tried to cook. You're the only one lucky enough to get this." Apparently not. Over the next few days, I tried calling her several more times, but every call was rejected. After each one, she would send a text. "Julian, Ethan's condition is getting worse. I'll come back after I spend a little more time with him. Julian, can you please just give me some time? Stop calling." Each message was shorter, more impatient than the last. Time flew. Half a month later, on the day I was discharged from the hospital, the long-absent Ava finally returned. But she brought someone with her. The woman who always looked so perfectly put together in front of me now appeared haggard. She got out of a black Maybach, walked around to the other side, and helped Ethan Vance out of the car. I was in a wheelchair, being pushed to the dining table for lunch when Ava walked in, supporting Ethan. She froze for a second when she saw me in the wheelchair. "Julian, what happened to you?" From her expression, I knew instantly. She hadn't given my car accident a second thought. Watching her stand by Ethan's side, carefully holding him up while feigning concern for me, felt like the cruelest irony. All her words about loving me, about growing old with me, they were all lies. Perhaps my expression was too cold, because Ava's face changed. She seemed to snap back to reality, glancing at Ethan beside her and biting her lip. "Julian, Ethan, he's terminally ill. His condition is really bad, and we don't know if we'll ever get another chance to see each other. That's why he came to San Francisco to find me. I was just keeping him company." I didn't answer her. I just had the housekeeper push my wheelchair over to the sofa. I picked up a file from the coffee table and handed it to her. She looked at me, confused, then took the file. As she read the words on the page, the color drained from her face. "You want a divorce?" Her hand, holding the divorce papers, trembled slightly. Her voice was filled with disbelief. "Is this because I want to see Ethan?" "Yes." As the word left my lips, her face grew even paler. "You know, we broke up. I'm only with him now because we're still friends." Friends, right? There are 330 million people in this country. Who's short a friend? Just friends is the oldest excuse in the book, a cover for one person's lingering hope and the other's unresolved feelings. I didn't want to waste any more time. "Sign it," I said coldly. "When you're free, we'll go to the courthouse and file the paperwork." "Julian," Ava was starting to panic. She let go of Ethan and took a step toward me. But just then, Ethan, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke. "Ava, I don't feel well." He said only those 5 simple words, and Ava immediately spun around and rushed back to his side. "What's wrong? Are you feeling dizzy again?" She held him so carefully, her face etched with worry, her eyes filled with pain for him. I smirked, my eyes meeting Ethan's over her shoulder. His face was a mask of discomfort, but his eyes were full of victory. After all those years with Ava, he knew exactly how deep her feelings ran and precisely how to manipulate her. His gaze toward me was hostile, a clear warning. He was showing me that no matter what I did, Ava would only ever love him. "Sign the damn papers and get out." I snapped. "Maria, show our guests the door." I couldn't stand to watch them anymore. Another second of their charade felt like poison to my eyes. I turned my wheelchair and headed for my study. In the end, Ava left with Ethan. As the sound of their footsteps faded, I stopped my wheelchair and glanced outside. They were already in the car. Watching the black Maybach pull away, I let out a self-deprecating laugh. I should have known. The second choice is always just the second choice. Maybe I was destined by the novel's plot to love her, to wait for her. But no matter how much the second guy gives, the heroine's heart will only ever truly belong to the hero. I went into my study and started catching up on the work that had piled up. At 3 in the morning, I rubbed my tired eyes, about to make some tea, when my phone buzzed. It was a picture. On a large bed, Ethan and a naked Ava were wrapped around each other. The pose was intimate, his fingers tangled in her long hair. The parts of her neck and shoulders that were visible were covered in bruises. One look was all it took to understand what had happened. A sharp pain lanced through me. I closed the photo. I never thought Ethan would stoop to such a cheap, cliched tactic. A grown man pulling these kind of stunts to get a woman back. It was pathetic. Seeing Ava's panicked, worried expression for Ethan made me think back to the times I had been sick. No matter how much pain I was in when my stomach acted up, Ava was always calm and collected. She'd give me water, my medicine, make soup. Her efficiency was flawless. At the time, I was touched. But thinking about it now, if you truly care about someone, how can you be so calm? It all came down to one thing. She didn't care. Because she wasn't worried, because she didn't love me, she was just completing a task, doing what a wife was supposed to do. Thinking about it that way, I suddenly felt like there was nothing to be upset about. A person who doesn't love you, it's better that she's gone. I pushed all emotion aside and dove back into my work. It wasn't until the sky outside began to lighten that I realized I had pulled an all-nighter. At least the backlog of work was mostly cleared. But just as I came out of the study, Maria approached me. "Sir, your wife is back." I was already exhausted from working all night. The news that Ava was back made me instinctively frown. I had no energy to deal with her drama. Ava stood in the doorway, wearing a different set of clothes, a wronged expression on her face. Perhaps from watching over Ethan all night, there were dark circles under her eyes, and her eyes were bloodshot. Seeing me, she bit her lip, her hands clenching at her sides. "Julian, I never wanted to divorce you. I know you must have misunderstood things with Ethan, right? I can explain. I'm not the type to drag things out. If it's over, it's over." Seeing her wavering between the two of us, unable to commit, was just laughable. Laughable that she was so indecisive, so entangled, and so blind to her own heart. I smirked. "Misunderstanding? I have eyes and ears. I can see things perfectly clearly. As for you, Ava, you've been playing a part for an entire year. Did you start to believe your own act?" At my words, Ava stared at me in disbelief, her eyes darkening. "Julian, what are you talking about? I don't want to make this uglier than it has to be. If you have any self-respect, stop trying to have your cake and eat it too." It was as if I'd hit a nerve. Ava shot to her feet. "Julian Cole." The victim act vanished, her beautiful brows furrowing in confusion. "What is your problem? You're a man. Can't you be a little more generous?" She stared at me, her tone no longer gentle. When I remained silent, she pressed on. "Julian Cole, so this is what your love for me amounts to? Nothing. Ethan has a terminal illness. You were just in a car accident. Can't you tell which one is more serious? You have so many people around you. Anyone could take care of you. But Ethan came all the way from Chicago to San Francisco for me. He only has me." Hearing her words, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I never knew Ava could be so sharp-tongued, so aggressive. I was her husband. Ethan was the ex-boyfriend who had trampled on her heart. And she was asking me who was more important. It was utterly ridiculous. I opened the photo Ethan had sent me and held the phone up in front of her face. "Generous? You're sleeping with him, and you want me, your husband, to be generous? If you were me, could you be generous? Ava, I feel like I'm truly meeting you for the first time today." Seeing the photo on my phone, Ava's mouth fell open. The woman who had been so articulate moments before was suddenly speechless. After a long moment, she finally spoke again. I, she stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. "That photo. Ethan just sent it to provoke you. It's not real. Are you really going to divorce me over a single photo?" I looked at her and smiled. "Ava, don't you think this is all getting pointless and, frankly, exhausting? In all the time we've been together, I had never spoken to her like that. Ava's expression shifted through a dozen emotions before she finally bit her lip. Fine, Julian Cole. So now you find me exhausting. She stared at me, nodding sharply. Fine, if this is what you want, then let's get a divorce. Just don't come to regret it. With that, she spun on her heel and stormed out. Watching her leave, I lowered my gaze and let out a soft, bitter laugh. Years of waiting, a heart given freely, all of it fed to the dogs. For the next few weeks, I recovered at home. The doctor insisted my leg needed rest and minimal activity, so I followed his orders. Important meetings were conducted via video conference, and my assistant brought crucial documents to the house for me to handle. As for Ava, she remained by Ethan's side. Ethan claimed he had a brain tumor and didn't have long to live, so Ava stayed with him day and night, catering to his every whim. Before all this, Ethan and I had only crossed paths at a few business functions. We had no private contact. Now, however, I was getting anonymous texts and photos every few days. All of them showed what Ava was doing for him, where she was going with him, what she was buying for him. I looked at them and just thought it was childish. Unlike Ethan, I didn't have that kind of time to waste. I was busy. A new resort project was up for bidding in Chicago. The project itself wasn't massive, but its prime location and government backing meant the future return on investment was high. Several companies had their eyes on it. I was determined to win this project, so I poured all my energy into it, going over the proposal with my team again and again to ensure it was flawless. While I was busy with this, Ava didn't seem to grasp how serious I was about the divorce. Since she stormed out of the house that day, there had been no word from her. She hadn't sent over the signed papers, nor had she contacted me to set a date to file them. Instead, she would occasionally post vague, dramatic updates on her Instagram. Promises are sincere when they're made, but sincerity can change in a heartbeat. In love, someone always has to be the first to back down. Other times, probably to spite me, she would post photos with Ethan. You might meet a lot of people in your life, but only one is right. You have to leave the wrong one to find the right one. Whatever she posted, I pretended not to see it. In truth, I really wasn't paying attention. I had no time to waste on such meaningless things. 2 weeks after she left, she called me. Julian Cole, I've signed the divorce papers. When do you want to file them? Even though that's what she said, I could hear the hesitation in her voice, as if she was probing, hoping I would refuse. I understood immediately. She still thought I was just angry, just throwing a tantrum. I had no doubt that if I said one soft word, she would immediately take the olive branch, and we'd go back to how things were. Every time we had a disagreement, I was always the one to appease her. Ava always knew just how far to push things, never making herself seem easy, but never taking it too far. Too bad for her. I was going to disappoint her this time. Text me the address. I'll have my assistant pick up the papers. I've already scheduled an appointment at the courthouse. We can go in 2 weeks. I'll send the time and address to your phone. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line, as if she hadn't expected that reaction at all. Just then, I heard Ethan's voice in the background. Ava, what are you doing? Why haven't you come back in? My head feels a little dizzy. Dizzy, I'm coming right now. Ava's urgent voice came through the phone, and a second later, the line went dead. I stared at the dark screen of my phone and smirked. Even now, she couldn't let go of either of us. She really did take me for a fool. What was even more ridiculous, she wasn't a doctor. If Ethan really felt sick, did she think he'd get better just by her being there? In the end, you only lose your sense of reason for the people and things you truly care about. Once you stop caring, clarity returns in an instant. Just like it did for me with Ava. Time flies when you're busy. Another 2 weeks went by. Perhaps because he'd heard that Ava and I were about to finalize our divorce, Ethan stopped sending me harassing text messages. And perhaps because she had Ethan there to comfort her, Ava didn't bother me again either. My life became much quieter. On the day of our appointment, I arrived at the courthouse on time. My assistant had just helped me out of the car and into my wheelchair when I saw Ava walking toward me, holding hands with Ethan. Looking at how inseparable they were, you would have thought they were here to get a marriage license. Let's go. Ava led Ethan over to me, her brow slightly furrowed. This time, even in front of me, she made no attempt to hide their relationship. In fact, she seemed perfectly comfortable with it. Just as Ava was about to follow me into the courthouse, Ethan pulled her back. She looked at him, confused. "Ethan, what's wrong?" When she spoke to him, her voice was exceptionally gentle. Ethan looked at her with deep affection. "Ava, will you blame me for this? It's because of me that You have to be sure about this. I'm afraid you'll regret it later." As he spoke, he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. A look of pure emotion crossed Ava's face. She raised her hand and squeezed his. "Ethan," she said with utter seriousness, "the fact that you came all the way from Chicago to San Francisco just to see me was enough to move me. How could any of this be your fault? You're a sick man. It's just that some people are incredibly petty." Her words were pointed, and she glanced in my direction as she said the last few. I was already out of patience for their little performance. I lifted my wrist and looked at my watch. "Our appointment is in 5 minutes," I said coldly. "How much longer are you two going to talk?" Only then did Ava let go of Ethan's hand. She looked at me intently, and after confirming that there wasn't a single trace of regret on my face, she walked toward me. "Let's go inside." The paperwork was processed quickly. When we walked out, Ethan was still waiting outside. Seeing the divorce certificate in Ava's hand, he raised an eyebrow, a flicker of triumph in his eyes, as if he had just won a prize. "Ava." He strode forward and pulled her into his arms. "This is great. You're finally mine again." But there was no joy on Ava's face. Her hand holding the certificate tightened, crumpling the document. A few seconds passed before she seemed to come back to her senses. She raised her arms and hugged him back. "Ethan, Ava, you have no idea how much I've suffered this past year without you. Every single night I thought about you. Thank God it's not too late. Thank God I finally have you back." Watching Ethan's passionate declaration of love, I raised an eyebrow slightly. He was quite the actor. I just wondered how long he could keep it up. I had no interest in watching the rest of the play. I had my assistant push me to the car, and we left. In the rearview mirror, I could see Ethan still holding Ava, apparently still in the middle of his heartfelt confession. A few days later, Ava went back to Chicago with Ethan. Except Ethan didn't take her to his villa. He checked her into a hotel. On her first day back in Chicago, I saw her post on Instagram. It was an intimate photo of the two of them, in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling window with a beautiful city skyline at night. Ethan was hugging her from behind. The caption read, "After all this time, I'm finally back by his side." There were a lot of comments from mutual friends, mostly confused. "What is happening? I'm lost. Wait, is there a sequel to Ethan's groveling tour? To win her back after all that? I have no words. Congrats. Congratulations, Ethan, on getting the girl. Don't know what to say, but good luck. Congrats, Ethan." The last two comments were from Ethan's best friends, Leo Song and Ben Carter, a couple of rich playboys who spent their days partying. I glanced at the comments, chuckled, then closed my phone and went back to work. The bidding for the Chicago resort project was in 2 days. I had to be there in person. I needed to get through the last few files on my desk tonight. The next morning, I flew to Chicago. I spent a day resting at my hotel and taking a few remote meetings. The day passed quickly. As soon as I arrived at the bidding conference, I ran into an old friend, David Shun, the head of the Shun Corporation. "Julian, I can't believe it. We're both eyeing the same project." I smiled and exchanged a few pleasantries with him before he suddenly asked, "By the way, Julian, you and Ava?" Ava had already announced it on Instagram, so there was no point in hiding it. I told him we were divorced. David looked shocked. "That Ethan Vance. He's really gone and done it this time." I just shrugged, not reacting to his comment, and returned to my seat. Shortly after I first told Ava I wanted a divorce, I'd heard a rumor. After 6 months of failing to win Ava back, Ethan had found a replacement, a girl who looked about 70% like her. 2 months ago, on Ethan's birthday, Leo Song had jokingly said, "Ethan, do you really love Ava that much? Have you ever thought that maybe you just can't stand losing?" At the time, Ethan had sworn it was true love. "Of course I love her. I can't live without her." TSK, you can tell yourself that. If you really couldn't live without her, you wouldn't have found a stand-in. Besides, she's already married to Julian Cole and has started a new life. You're the only one still stuck in the past. Ethan's face had turned pale with rage. "Even if Ava married Julian Cole, she's still in love with me. All I need is a little sob story, and she'll come running back." One thing led to another, and they made a bet. A bet on whether Ava would leave me for Ethan. And so, Ethan went to San Francisco and lied to Ava, telling her he was dying. Leo had even posted about the bet in their private group chat, letting everyone place wagers, so a lot of people in their circle knew about it. Eventually, the news made its way to me. But Ava, through it all, remained completely in the dark. She truly believed that Ethan was on death's door, that he still loved her, that even in his frail condition, he had to come to San Francisco to see her. She was so moved that she stayed by his side, completely ignoring me, her husband. But in the end, the true love she thought she had found was nothing more than a bet between a few spoiled rich kids. None of that mattered to me now. I had no interest in other people's drama. Everyone has to take responsibility for their own choices. If she wanted to fall into the same trap twice, so be it. The bidding conference lasted all day. In the end, I won the project. As I was about to leave, Ethan blocked my path. His face was dark, a complete contrast to the man he was in front of Ava. "Julian Cole, your wife ran off with me, and you still have the energy to work." I looked at his scowling face and smirked. She's just a woman. If she runs, she runs. What's the point of forcing someone to stay when their heart is already gone? It's just an empty shell. But a project I win, the money I earn, that's real. Wouldn't you agree? Ethan's expression grew even uglier. I just smiled and walked away. Winning the project was just the first step. There was a lot of follow-up work to do, so I had to stay in Chicago for another week. During that time, news about Ethan and Ava kept reaching me. Even if I didn't want to hear it, someone was always talking about it. One day, David Shun invited me out to dinner. As we sat in the restaurant, chatting, he suddenly remembered something and laughed. You have no idea. The night the bidding ended, Ethan went out drinking with Leo and Ben at a club, leaving Ava all alone at the hotel. Everyone in Chicago knows what Ethan Vance is like. He's famously a player. Looks like Ava fell for his tricks again. David said things got ugly that night. When Ava got word and rushed to the club, she found Ethan passionately kissing another woman. The room was thick with the smell of alcohol and smoke. Ava stared at the scene in disbelief. "Ethan, don't you have a terminal illness? You're here drinking, smoking, and fooling around with other women. Do you have a death wish?" Her voice trembled. By then, Ava must have started to realize something was wrong, but she still couldn't accept it. Ethan, with his arm around the other woman, laughed mockingly. "Ava, only a fool like you would fall for such a pathetic lie. I begged you to come back to me, but you wouldn't. I humbled myself for you. But you still married Julian Cole. After you humiliated me like that, do you really think I was just going to wait around for you?" Ava stood frozen, the color draining from her face. "So, you were lying to me?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What do you think? Did you really want to get back together with me?" "Don't play dumb, Ava. You think I didn't see it? You never wanted to leave Julian Cole in the first place. You hesitated when he asked for a divorce. So don't stand here now and act like you're so devoted to me." Every word he spoke was like a knife twisting in her heart. "Why would you do this? Why? We were broken up. What did I ever do to you? Why, after all this time, do you have to come back and torture me?" Ava's eyes were red as she stared at him. She had loved him for so many years, loved him until she had lost herself. He had crushed her self-respect, her heart, under his heel. She had left him to start over. But just when she had found peace, he came back to toy with her emotions again. Even after a breakup, a person you once loved deeply always holds a place in your heart. That's why she had abandoned me for him. Seeing how heartbroken Ava was, Ethan felt nothing. He smiled coldly. "Because I made a bet with my friends. And I should thank you, actually. You won me $3 million. Now the game is over. You can go." Ava was so triggered by what he said that she started smashing everything in the private room. David continued. After she was done, she was like a crazy person, laughing and crying at the same time. Leo even posted a video of it. "Man, it was a scene. You're lucky you divorced her. A woman like that, you're better off without her." Listening to David's vivid description of that night, I felt very little. I just thought Ava was pathetic. But David was right about one thing. A woman like Ava, I was better off without her. She was blind, but so was I. If I hadn't been, why would I have been so obsessed with a woman like that for so long? Fortunately, the mistake had been corrected in time. After dinner with David, I was just stepping out of the restaurant when someone blocked my path. It was Ava. She was wearing a simple dress, no makeup on her face. In just a few short days, she had lost a noticeable amount of weight. Seeing me, she stepped forward, her eyes red. Julian, David, who had walked out with me, froze when he saw her. Before I could speak, he sneered, "Ms. Mitchell, you're quite skilled at playing both sides. When one boat sinks, we try to jump to the other. But it seems you haven't realized that this boat capsized a long time ago." I couldn't help but laugh at his metaphor. To Ava, however, my laughter was pure mockery. She clutched the fabric of her dress, her eyes growing redder, and a large tear suddenly rolled down her cheek. "Julian, I know I was wrong. I messed up. Can you forgive me? I shouldn't have treated you that way because of Ethan. He lied to me. He was playing me from the very beginning." As she said this, the last bit of color drained from her face. "I truly regret it. Please forgive me. We can get remarried. I promise I'll love you and take care of you from now on." I watched her silently as she apologized, repented, and begged for forgiveness. When she had said everything she could possibly say, I finally spoke. "Are you done?" Ava stared at me, stunned. Her voice was hoarse and broken. "Julian, if you don't want me either, I really have nowhere else to go." I frowned, cutting her off. "Ava, we're divorced. Your problems have nothing to do with me. I'm a busy man. I have neither the time nor the obligation to listen to this nonsense." With that, I started to walk away. Ava tried to follow, but I stopped and turned back to her. "Let me give you a piece of advice for old time's sake. I don't have Ethan's patience or his tolerance for games. Stop harassing me." Ava froze, not taking another step. She looked at me as if she were seeing me for the first time. And I guess in a way she was. While I loved her, I put her on a pedestal. I gave her all my patience, all my kindness. Maybe that created the illusion that I was a pushover. But that was never who I was. Never. Over the next few days, Ava called me a few more times and sent several texts. Tired of it all, I blocked her number. On the day I was set to fly back to San Francisco, my car pulled up to the airport. Just as I got out, Ava ran toward me, holding a thermos. "Julian, I made you some of that soup for your stomach." Her eyes were filled with hope as she carefully offered the thermos to me. I glanced down at it, then met her eyes. "These little tricks won't work on me anymore." Her pale lips parted. "But you used to." That was then. Then I was willing to play along. Now I'm not. "Ava, one strike and you're out. You understand that rule, don't you? I'll say this one last time. Stop bothering me. It's disgusting." I walked past her and went straight into the airport. Back in San Francisco, my life was as busy as ever. My days were filled with work, and my free time was spent with friends, drinking tea, having dinner, or playing golf. It was a comfortable, peaceful existence. A month later, I heard news about Ava and Ethan again. Years ago, Ava had dropped out of college to be with Ethan, willingly becoming his stay-at-home girlfriend. After she left him, she came to me. For all those years, she never had to face the hardships of life. But things were different now. She was divorced from me, and Ethan had kicked her to the curb. Her life of comfort and ease was over, but she wasn't one to accept that fate. When her attempts to get back with me failed, she went back to harassing Ethan. One night, Ethan and his friends were drag racing on a highway along the river. To stop him, Ava stood in front of his sports car. "Ethan, if you won't let me stay with you, then just run me over." But Ethan Vance wasn't someone who could be easily threatened. He just laughed coldly. One of them thought he wouldn't hit her. The other thought she would move. Ethan slammed his foot on the gas and drove straight at her. She didn't die, but her fate was worse than death. Both of her legs were crippled. She would never walk again. As for Ethan, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison for assault with a deadly weapon. Neither of them came out a winner. When I heard the news, my company had just closed another major deal. The worst tragedy in life isn't losing someone you love. It's losing yourself because you love someone too much.